One of the things that made a real difference to my ability to solo over tunes in a jazz context is studying solos by my favourite artists. Not necessarily guitarists, but today's focus will be on one of my favourite guitarists, Charlie Christian. And one such solo that I did study and got a lot from, and I believe you can too, is his solo on the studio recording from 1939 of his tune 7 Come 11. For me, we have A sections, which are a great example of how you can use triads very simply to improvise. We've got his knack of resolving to chord tones, so his phrases sound strong, and his great knack for really going for it on a B section so that his solo has a sense of build and momentum and a bit of a story to it. Here it is first at full speed at 230 BPM. Now you can get my transcription PDF with tab and notation on the lowest tier of my Patreon, link in the description. Now, one of the things I would always do when working with the solo is slow it down. So I think probably the next thing I should do is play it for you at a slower tempo that will give you more time to hear the lines, if you like, and appreciate what's going on. Here it is at 180 BPM to my backing track. Now, in order for us to understand it, let's just think about what chords he's playing over here. Here's my basic chart on the screen. The A section, he's playing over that do, that riff, which is essentially just all A flat. So it's two A sections, both 8 bars long, just all A flat. Then we've got this B section, this busy B section, where he's cycling through dominant chords in fourths: G7, C7, F7, B flat 7. E flat 7's the dominant of A flat, so it pings us back to do that whole 8 bars of A flat again. And I think a really important point I'd like to make here, if you're going to understand a solo, you obviously need to have an appreciation of the harmony that he's playing over to make any sense of what he's doing. So my last upload went through all of the changes, the riffs and so forth. So I will link that in the description. And I suggest if you really want to get into this solo, make sure you know what he's playing over first. So I'm going to now delve into 3 things that I think you could learn from this solo. The first thing is his knack for using triad-based harmony. Now, this A section essentially being all A flat, I think you could get different responses as to what that's like to play over. I think you could find some people that think, oh, it's only one chord. What on earth am I going to do over one chord? There's no movement. You know, how am I going to play tension and release? How am I going to play something interesting? I can't just play A flat for 16 bars. And you'll get other people like myself. I think it's a gift, and I think it's a great place to explore working on call and response phrasing and triad harmony. Now, what I'll do now is pick out a few examples of his use of the triad. Just a reminder of an A flat major triad: 1, 3, 5, A flat, C, E flat there. So just the chord being A flat, we've got this very safe space to just work with this. But he naturally uses more notes than just 1, 3, 5, but those notes are very, very prominently placed. And we could look at what notes he's adding in maybe first. So we've got that triad, and then to embellish that, the notes he's adding in, say on the G string, the flat 3, which is a very important part of the melody in this song. So that gives us root, flat 3, 3, 5. Another prominent note that he adds in is the 6. There it is on the B string. And he also uses the 6th, an octave lower. And then we've also got the 4th. And then the octave of the root. And then what you get is the ninth here. And bending up, if you bend up the ninth, you get to the sharp 9, which is the flat 3 again. And you get this kind of pool of notes that he's using, right? You've got 1, 3, 5. You've got the flat 3. You've got the 4 for a bit of tension. You've got the 6 there I'm finishing on for a sweetness. You've got the root of the octave for a strong, prominent sound and kind of sense of finality about that when you play it. The ninth for a colour like the 6th. And the octave below of the 6 also. So to me what you get there is you get those primary notes of 1, 3, 5 plus colour notes of like the sweetness the 6th and the ninth provides, then the bluesy feel from the 3 and the tension that the 4th provides. Now just going through even just the first A section, let's root. Now just to start off with, starting a solo just with the same note repeated with a cool rhythm, how simple is that? I think most guitarists by then will have played about 25 notes. I think maybe the influence of brass players on him there. But anyway, just starting on the root very simply. Then the third bar. Yeah, that's great there. Listen, the flat 3 to 3, 5, 6, finishes on the root. What's great about that is it's super strong. Finishing on the root of the chord, resolving to a chord tone, rather than, say, a note outside of it, which might sound more dissonant. He's then doing a pre-bend up from the second, or the ninth, sorry, to the flat 3, and bring it back down to the second. And then we're using back into the root, 6, 5, and then there's a little enclosure here. 4, flat 3, 3. Then he leaves his 4th hanging for a bit of tension, but resolves it with the next phrase. Resolving to the root again at the end, look. So this is flat 3 to 3, 5 to 6, back to the 5th, enclose the 3, down to the 6, back to the root. That rhythm in that final bar, that's a rhythm he used a lot, 1 and 2 and. He uses that loads in his solos. But so we can see there, very simple in terms of harmonic choices, right? It's a limited pool of notes, and he is, apart from in when he resolved or finished an idea on the 4th for a bit of tension, which he did resolve in the next phrase, all the phrases finish on, the first phrase finishes on the root, so the second one finishes on the 4th, and the third phrase finishes on the root. So you kind of got in, outside, in, if you like, resolves, tense, resolves the next one. Now here he goes a bit higher. He's still using the same, but not starting on the lower part of the triad. Oh, he does bring in one additional note here, the flat 7. This is pretty cool actually, because we've not had that note so far, and that brings in a slightly different feel, obviously a bluesy quality. We're going here, picking up the 5th from the last bar, and then root 9, root, flat 7 to 5, resolving again to a chord tone, a 5th, resolving to the root, and then he shifts position here up to the 5th of the A flat. This is an E flat, chromatically down to the 3rd, so that's a E flat to C, resolving to the 5th here, and then we get the bluesy flat 3 there, and the really strong triad with the octave again on the top, which is like, hello, the A section's finished. So I think there, what's really nice about those two A sections is very simple harmony. The ideas are all really strong, and I think that's largely because of the resolving to chord tones on the whole. And then there's that journey, there's a little bit of development happening, like using the flat 7 for the first time in the second A, and using a bit more range of the guitar. When he goes up there, you know, we spent all of our time down here, so to suddenly go up here is suddenly like, it's exciting. It brings a bit more kind of interest and movement for me. as I said on the intro to this video, the B section does something that Charlie Christian often did, which is he would phrase on the A sections, have a bit of space between his ideas, have discernible ideas, idea here, idea there, like we have had so far, and then just absolutely go for it on the B section and fill the space. That way you've got a real kind of feeling like of him playing the form of the song and treating it differently, making that new section feel different. And it's something I definitely learned from him and use all the time at gigs. And you can see here, if I put the B section on the screen, what I mean. There's like 3 eighth note rests in the whole B section, so he is properly filling the space. So this is something I'd encourage you to try to do. You know, on an ABA song, particularly a swinger, an up-tempo, mid-tempo swing, whatever, try and phrase on the A section and just fill the space on the B, and just notice what that does for kind of giving your solo more sense of a journey rather than just playing one idea to the next. And I think when you go through this, when you work through this, again, I'm not going to go through every interval here because it would take ages, but there's some interesting things going on. Getting into the B section, he kind of anticipates it slightly. He puts a B on beat 4 of the last bit on the A section, slides up to it, which would be the major third of our G7. So you want to make an effort to think, what is this? What interval is it starting on? First bar, the B section starts on a D, which is the 5th of the G7. Now he's following the chords pretty closely there, but he is using things like, in that particular one, it's 5th, the 6th or 13th, flat 7, back to the 13, back to the 5, the 9, the 3, then the flat 7. So he's got those upper extensions, the 9th and the 13th, which definitely bring in colour, that just 1, 3, 5, 7, obviously those are great to play too, but those upper extensions bring in more colour and interest. On the C7 there's a bit of chromaticism. It resolves to the 13th. Bit of chromaticism going down to the F. This is something he did all the time on that first bar on the F. The last 3 notes of the first bar. He goes chromatically down from the 5th to the 3rd of the F chord. This is something I use all the time from him, which is, say, from the last 3 notes of the first bar on the F. And that is 5, flat 5, 4, down to the 3. Then skip all that out, go back to the 5th, flat 7, 9, 13. That's a great sound, and I use that all the time on dominant chords. The 5th, down to the 3rd, then you work all the way up to the 13th. Really nice line. Again, nice upper extensions in that, finishing on the 13th. And then he starts to B flat 7, does the 3rd, down to the 9th, and he gets to that E flat to resolve to the root of that chord. So I encourage you to go through that and make sense of what is going on. You could even print out my transcription or on an iPad or something, annotate what the intervals are, because if you're just seeing it as a sea of tabs, which isn't ideal, you want to know intervallically what's going on so that you can imitate those kind of things yourself, and to start to see how some of these, in this bit, the upper extensions are coming in to his playing, and how he's following the changes as well. Like, for example, he starts the B section 1 beat earlier, he plays the major third of the G7, and then I think I hear the start of the C7, he's playing the 3rd on beat 1, and then the last note in the C7 of that line is an F. He's anticipating the F going into the next bar. At the last note of the F7, he's playing a D, which is the 3rd of the B flat 7. The last note of the E flat, the B flat chord, he's playing an E flat, so he's anticipating the E flat. So quite often there's this thing where he's targeting a note, probably unconsciously, albeit, but there's this target of a note just a bit before the chord comes in, and a big part of his playing is anticipating a chord, so kind of playing the arpeggio or a note for that chord, say, just before it comes in. And say through that B section, loads of space has gone, so he's using, predominantly eighth notes, and he's filled it all up, and so it makes it very tense and interesting. He's following the chords quite closely, and he's anticipating the chords as well. So a few takeaways there. When he gets back to the final A section, he goes back to kind of more typical phrasing, short phrases. That idea, 3, 5, 6, 1. He does that bend that he did in the first A section, up to the flat 3, down back to the second or ninth. Then bends up the 6 to the flat 7 for a really bluesy sound. Then goes to the flat 3, that sounds great there. Then down to the flat 7. And then this is really cool little idea. He does root, flat 3 to 3 to 5th. So very triad bass. Goes to the 4th. And it's as if he's playing a D flat chord here. And then does a kind of flourish to finish, but with notes we've been using so far. So there's plenty in this one, and said if you want my transcription, if you want my backing track, they're on the lowest tier of my Patreon page. And just final thing to say, really, what you want to do with this, I think, is you try and learn the solo. You try and get it in time. Getting it to 230 BPM would be amazing, but you don't have to. Getting it to the speed, the slower speed I played it, 180, will still be a good way. You can still learn from it. You don't have to get it to full speed to be able to take things from it, of course. And actually slowing things down makes it easier to comprehend what's going on, maybe internalize some of the sounds as what he's doing as well, right? But what you want to do long term with this kind of thing is help it. You could take some jazz language from it. You could directly lift some things from it if you wanted. That might be a good way just to get some ideas into your playing. But what's more useful is to kind of, like I say, if you understand what's going on in that A section, say, or the B section for that matter, it's then trying to take those kind of ideas and do your own thing with it. You know, if you've got this... So I'm just playing, definitely could have played something more interesting there, but just sort of riffing around those kind of notes he was using and the kind of feel he was using. And that is the key thing about, you know, for me, transcribing. It's fun actually, like working out what someone's playing. It's fun working on their ideas and trying to understand what's going on. But the real icing on the cake is if you can take those things and generate your own ideas. And that, for me, is the whole point of doing it. But you will all be at different points on your journey with your progress. And, you know, a win for someone new to this might be just playing the first A section, learning that. You know, to take a whole 32 bar solo and learn it takes time, you know, and especially to get it down to the point when you memorize it. I mean, that takes me a while anyway. So everyone's got different stages with this, so just be aware of that. And some of these things I'm saying you might not be ready for, but there's definitely things everyone can take from this solo. Whether you're that person that can play it all the way through at 230 BPM, it doesn't really matter. That might be you one day. It's what can you take from it at this moment in time. And I think that's, you know, that's all we can always do. And just someone like Charlie Christian is a fountain of great ideas. And not just him, obviously you could transcribe other artists too, but as I said at the top of this video, this is a solo I learnt a lot from. I often show it to students because I think it's, you know, indicative of a lot of cool approaches and methods that we can all learn from. Anyway, I could talk all day about Charlie Christian. I won't, so just leaves me to say, link in the description to my Patreon page for the transcription from today. Thanks for tuning in. Leave a comment if you've enjoyed this lesson or you've got any other thoughts about the solo. Until next time, you take care.